Jessica, if it helps me get out of here, then yes, this table is just perfect, Louis moaned. Why did I even bring you here? Snapped at Jessica, looking at the $700 desk. Is the chair included? No, ma'am, the chair is separate, replied the saleswoman at Roselawn Furniture, trying to hide her irritation. The sign on the table clearly states that the chair is sold separately. The sign on the chair also says it is not included. Nevertheless, the customer asked about it again. What about Jessica? In a couple years, this table will be too small for Michelle, Louis said. No, it won't, Jessica objected. You're right. Why did you bring me here? Louis asked. You know everything. I don't know anything. Why am I here for you? Louis walked over to another desk and pointed to it. I like this one. It will grow with her. The legs are adjustable, but apparently, since it only costs $400, it's not good enough. Chrome. Jessica grinned. Goodbye. Have fun, Louis said and walked out of the store. Seriously, the chair isn't on. Jessica continued. No, ma'am, the chair is separate, the saleswoman repeated, pointing to a sign on the table. Michelle, come here. Jessica ordered the chubby girl. Michelle reluctantly got up from the comfortable couch she and Mr. Louis had enjoyed and wandered over to her mother. She looked at her and waited for further instructions. Here, try this table, Jessica said. Michelle had to wiggle and squeeze her chubby body into the small desk. Jessica smiled, expecting her daughter to say it was the perfect desk. Why can't we get this one? Michelle asked, pointing to the desk Mr. Louis had chosen. Because it's ugly, Jessica retorted. Kids, Jessica addressed the saleswoman, shaking her short mop of auburn curls. I don't like this one. It's too small, Michelle said. Okay, Jessica snapped back, grabbing her 8-year-old daughter's hand. Let's go. Maybe O'Neill will have a better choice. Thank you, ma'am. No problem, the saleswoman replied, feeling relieved that the obnoxious, overbearing woman was finally leaving. So where is he? I know he didn't, Jessica muttered, looking around for Louis's pickup, a 2017-year-old Nissan Frontier King Cab. The hideous green pickup was nowhere to be seen. Jessica walked to the side of the store and peered into the side parking lot. She walked back in, looking around at the 12 cars in the parking lot. The truck wasn't there. He'd insisted on taking the truck, claiming that if they found something, they could load it into it. Louis didn't seem to realize that the awful green color was attracting too much attention. They looked like a bunch of hayseeds getting out of an ugly car. Both Roselawns and O'Neill's offered home delivery. A pickup truck just wasn't necessary. Inside the captain's table, Louis took a long sip of draft Graciously beer. Marvin, who ran the gentleman's club, was an egregious scumbag, but he knew too invaluable things: how to hire gorgeous women and how to pour draft beer. That made all of Marvin's shortcomings as a human being perfectly acceptable. Hey, honey, buy a girl a drink, chirped in Louis's ear, the pretty little blonde girl, not forgetting to poke him in the biceps with her 32 sea breasts. Let me guess, a $15 champagne cocktail, although I bet you're not old enough to drink. Yet, are you? Louis smirked, holding out a $5 bill to the girl. No sugar, just here. Thanks, sweetie, the blonde giggled and staggered away, trying not to wiggle too much. As she walked, Louis's cell phone rang. It was his wife's ringtone. After standing for a moment, Louis answered it. Yes, Louis asked. Yes. What do you mean? Yes, shrilled Jessie. Where the hell are you? Not here, said Louis. Well, I can see that, shrieked Jessie. But why? We're here waiting. Where are you? I'm at the captain's table, Louis admitted, seeing no reason to lie. With all this, Louis, come here, Jessica demanded. Michelle and I are here, and you just abandoned us. I can't believe. Let's see if that perfect desk and that crappy couch can get you home, Louis said. And you have to pay for the couch. They won't order it until, Jessica demanded. Louis didn't hear her demand. He'd already hung up. He sighed as Jessica's ringtone rang again. This time, Lewis transferred the call to voicemail. He did the same when she immediately called back. 3 more times he sent his wife to voicemail. "Take an Uber," Lewis texted her after the 5th call. "With what? My looks?" sounded Jessica's reply. "Either that or your pleasant personality," Lewis replied. "I'll be home whenever I feel like it." Lewis hated leaving Michelle. The child didn't deserve it, but it was necessary to either give up Michelle and Jessica, or give in to Jessica's unreasonable and overbearing demands again. He met Jessica when an agent from Gold Standard Real Estate needed an emergency air conditioning repair. Robertson's Heating and AC couldn't send someone out until Friday, but Jessica had a client who wanted to see the house the very next day. Jessica called Sammy's Heating and AC, and Lewis, having canceled a previous job, was able to come. Lewis had always had a fetish for full women, and Jessica Hargreaves was a real looker. After Jessica, with her waist-length curly hair, dimpled smile, and lusciously sweet personality, put the machine to work, Lewis asked her if she'd had lunch. Jessica agreed to go to Wedge's for their signature deep-fried sandwiches. After Wedge's, they ended up in Lewis' trailer, and he kissed every square inch of her plump body. Meeting 7-year-old Michelle made Jessica Hargreaves even more attractive. Lewis loved children, he said, and Jessica agreed that they would have 2 or 3 or 5 more children. But Lewis' trailer wasn't good enough. They decided to go house hunting. Lewis liked house number 401 on Conway Road, but it wasn't quite what Jessica had hoped for. Lewis liked the house at 2803 Kent Avenue, but Jessica didn't like it. The house at 3221 on Trenton Drive wasn't what Jessica wanted either. This is perfect," Jessica marveled, as she looked at the house at 11711 on Cottonwood Drive. "You're kidding," Lewis said, looking around the house and noting the need for repairs and updates, pointing out that the house at number 401 Conway Road had 200 square feet more space and cost $17,000 less didn't sway Jessica. Also, even though the house at 2803 Kent Avenue was in the same school district, Jessica remained undeterred. Lewis began to put the puzzle together. The house on Cottonwood Drive, number 11711, was on the other side of Ferguson, in the Chanley Country Club neighborhood. Lewis' proposed honeymoon had been turned down. Disney World wasn't good enough. Jessica wanted Cozumel, Acapulco, or Hawaii. Sighing, Lewis showed her a spreadsheet of income and expenses. Even with her commission from the sale of the house on Cottonwood Drive, number 1711, their budget simply wouldn't allow for any of those exotic locations. Besides, there would be little entertainment for a 7-year-old girl in Cozumel, Acapulco, or Hawaii. Another point of contention, Jessica insisted on keeping her maiden name. She claimed that as a successful real estate agent, people knew and trusted the name Jessica Hargreaves. No one knew Jessica Rooney, and it would take too long to gain recognition for a new name. Because the house on Cottonwood Drive, number 1711, needed repairs, paint, new carpet, and a new roof. The family still lived in Lewis' trailer. When Lewis wasn't working at H&AC, he was helping Jessica. Wagaman's Flooring wanted $14,000 for a deep pile carpet, promising to install it the next day. Lewis hated the color, but agreed to the style. He disagreed with Wagaman's price, however. "But they can put it in tomorrow," Jessica whined, "and I'm still painting the walls, Jessica." "New carpet means I'll be getting paint all over it," Lewis sighed. "Why can't we just invite Pearl painters?" Jessica asked. "Because you wanted an emerald engagement ring," replied Lewis. "We'll get a rug from my buddy Chad, and I'll lay it myself." Lewis suggested a soft yellow color for the kitchen. Jessica demanded it be Robin's egg blue. After spending the money on a 5-liter bucket, Lewis applied the paint to the wall in one stroke, and Jessica had to agree. Blue didn't go with the appliances, unless of course Lewis wanted to buy new ones. Finally, the carpet was laid, the walls painted, and the roof patched and covered. For now, they made do with Lewis' disgusting old furniture that he had bought 4 years ago. When he purchased the trailer, Michelle's school desk was an old shabby kitchen table, bought at a garage sale for $40. Michelle enjoyed doing her homework at the kitchen table, especially when Mr. Lewis would sit with her and help her. Cora tried to, 2 months ago, knowing how much Lewis loved her long brown curls. Jessica cut them off. She stated that she wanted to look more professional. Lewis barely refrained from commenting that she needed to act more professional. Her appearance had little effect on her sales, or rather lack thereof. "Another one?" Marvin asked, holding out the nearly empty mug to Lewis. "No, I need to pick up the baby," Lewis sighed, and her choking on his mitt. Lewis looked again at the slightly chubby, red-headed girl bouncing along to the hip-hop music. He saw Jessica and Michelle sitting on the high platform in front of the Roselawn Furniture Store. He shook his head. Mother and daughter had already spent an hour here. However, Jessica clearly wasn't planning a walk. "He's coming, Mommy!" Michelle exclaimed as she spotted a neon green truck approaching. "My phone is dead. Thank you very much," Jessica called out as she opened the passenger door of this truck. "Hey, baby, did you have a good time?" Lewis asked Michelle as she staggered into the cab of the truck. "No," Michelle replied as she buckled into her seat. "Can you hear me?" Jessica shouted indignantly. "I can hear you. Roselawn can hear you. All of Arkansas can hear you, Jessica," Lewis shouted back. "But good luck finding someone who cares. You hear me?" As they drove, Lewis made a decision. From the beginning, he had done everything he could to make Jessica happy, but she never became happy. Thank God I still have the trailer," Lewis said, pulling the truck into the garage. "Why did you bring your truck in? Why can't you just pull in like a normal person?" Snapped at Jessica. "Because I'm not a normal person," Lewis suggested, smiling when Michelle giggled. "I need to go to the bathroom and you made me walk all the way over here," complained Jessica. "Sounds like you could use a little walking," Lewis said. Jessica opened her mouth to scream, but remembered that she really needed to go to the bathroom. The longer she stood there complaining, the longer it would be before she could go to this bathroom. While Jessica used the small downstairs bathroom, Lewis loaded the tools into the back of his truck. With a sad sigh, he removed Michelle's seat from the truck and replaced it with a large toolbox. "Have you seen my charger?" Jessica asked when Lewis walked into the kitchen. "Maybe it's in your car," Lewis suggested without stopping walking past her. "Why is Michelle's chair removed from the truck?" Jessica asked, plugging the charger into the socket next to the bedside lamp. "You're just going to put it back in, aren't you?" "No, I won't put it back," Lewis said, closing his suitcase. "Where are you going?" Jessica asked, suddenly noticing the suitcases. "I'm leaving. I've had enough," Lewis announced. "I'm leaving the house. You can buy whatever you want for this ugly house. That couch Michelle and I hated. You can have it. That little table she'll outgrow tomorrow. You can have it. That stupid ship's wheel that will look ridiculous in the living room. Jessica, you can have it all. You can have anything you want. But," Jessica stammered, genuinely horrified. Lewis knew her panic was partly due to the fact that she hadn't had any sales for the past 4 months. 4 months with no income. The couch, the desk, the ship's helm, all of it was out of Jessica's reach unless Lewis pulled out his credit card. The drive from his home on Cottonwood Drive in Sandy to his trailer on Connor Parkway in Gratiot, Arkansas took Lewis 27 minutes. 28 minutes later, he turned on the air conditioning, carried his suitcases into the first bedroom, and laid down on the double bed that Michelle used to sleep on when they lived here. Fortunately, Jessica had declared that that bed will not be making an appearance in my house. The ceiling fan circulated warm air, and the air conditioner did its best to cool the stuffy trailer. Despite the heat, within minutes, Lewis was sound asleep. Lewis was friends with Greg Waitley, so he quickly made an appointment with Lily Waitley of Norton, Turner, Bloomberg, Waitley, and Associates. Although Lily was a very beautiful red-haired woman, it was clear within moments that she was also very smart. "I put $37,000 into this house. $25,000 was the down payment, plus all the paint, carpet, and Electrical switches she just had to have. Lewis said, I know I can't pay it all back, but at least you won't have to pay for it all the time, Lily suggested. Donovan Record of Record. Franklin and Associates represented Jessica Hargreaves in the Coleman v. Hutchinson case. His first demand was that Lewis resumed mortgage payments on the house on Cottonwood Drive. Lewis, through his attorney, refused. Then Donovan sought counseling. His haughty face turned ruddy. As Lily giggled at Lewis's whisper, Donovan and Jessica's eyes narrowed when Lily said, Fine, if your client is willing to pay for it, and your client should also get counseling for herself. Monica Berhalter was a bright and energetic woman as she began her career as a counselor. She was relatively accessible in terms of her work schedule and fairly inexpensive. Jessica lived on her base salary at Gold Standard Real Estate and in $100 mortgage, was quickly eating up her income. Monica had earned Lewis's respect as early as the first session, interrupting Jessica after 10 minutes of her complaining. Lewis held back a smirk. He could see Jessica wasn't happy. My goodness, let's see. He's stubborn, childish, demanding, selfish, and lacking in imagination. He won't listen, won't admit he's wrong, refuses to see your side of an argument, Miss Hargreaves. Am I missing anything? Monica asked, reviewing her notes. Jessica paused to think, then added that Lewis had also persuaded her daughter Michelle to take his side against her. Monica raised her hand to cut off another round of Jessica's complaints. Oh my God, Monica repeated, then why on earth would you even want to stay married to him? At that moment, Lewis couldn't help himself and smiled. He smiled while Jessica tried to think of an appropriate response. Monica kept a neutral expression on her face as she watched her struggle. After a few moments of silence, she nodded. Miss Hargreaves, that should be your assignment for the next session, Monica announced. Why do you two have to stay married? Monica turned her attention to Lewis. At the sight of his smile, she nearly lost her professional composure. Mr. Rooney, Monica began. Miss Berhalter, please just call me Lewis. Lewis invited. When I hear Mr. Rooney, I think you're talking to my Uncle Rob. Oh, and get this, his Uncle Rob. Jessica began to complain again. Miss Hargreaves, I didn't ask you any questions. Lewis didn't ask you any questions. He just asked me to call him Lewis. Why do you feel you need to interfere? Monica said firmly. Well, his Uncle Rob, began Jessica. We're not talking about his Uncle Rob. Monica interrupted. Well, I can see this isn't going to work out. Jessica snarled and rose to her feet. My feet is the same whether you stay the full 45 minutes or not, Monica said cheerfully. And according to Lily Waitley, Lewis' attorney, you're the one who has to pay for this session. Jessica said nothing in reply, striding regularly out of the room. Lewis laughed as she tried to slam the door shut, but a hydraulic spring prevented the maneuver. So, Lewis, why did you marry Miss Hargreaves? Monica asked. What attracted you to her? What was it about her that made you fall in love? Lewis lost his smile, pausing to consider Monica's rather curious questions. He was handsome, though somewhat rough-looking. He had thick blonde hair, which he had allowed to grow. When loose, it reached his shoulder blades. On his square face usually lay the dark brown shadow of 5 o'clock. Deep brown eyes were hidden under bushy eyebrows that hovered over both eyes. Lewis was thinking of saving up money and getting his nose reduced, as he thought it was too big. Lewis thought he looked like his father, whoever he was. Everyone in the Rooney family was a brunette. Francesca Rooney was a whore in high school and beyond. She changed low-paying jobs frequently and slept with anyone who said hello to her. She had no standards and very rarely said no to any request. At the age of 23, Francesca found herself pregnant again, but instead of having another abortion, she decided to carry Lewis Robert Rooney to full term. Francesca's parents, Samuel and Roberta Rooney, had had enough of their wayward daughter and refused to help her. Samuel Jr. also refused. He was tired of her embarrassing him. Rob, however, was a good God-fearing man. The Bible told him that his sister was his responsibility, and he took those kind words seriously. Louis was just beginning to crawl when Francesca got into the back seat of a married man's car. The man's wife put 5 bullets in her cheating husband's heart and 1 bullet in Francesca's head. You know, looking at pictures of my mom, Louis said slowly and thoughtfully. She was a little overweight. Monica asked, tightening her lips at Louis's use of the word overweight. When I met Jessica, she was nothing like the one you just saw, Louis said. Sweet as sugar, ready for anything from a simple hamburger at Frank's to a fancy Italian dinner. At Gino's. Frank, are they good? Monica asked. They're the greasiest, nastiest half-pound of ground meat you've ever put in your mouth, Louis smiled. Frank uses Vidalia onions and freshly ground black pepper in the mix. It's okay. I know where I'm going for lunch, Monica interrupted. I usually add a fried egg to them. No, I'm not worried about cholesterol, Louis said. Uncle Rob raised Louis with the guidance of the Bible. Louis didn't learn this until he was 16, but the reason Uncle Rob didn't communicate with his mother, father, and older brother was because the other Runnies despised Francesca and Louis. Louis was a reminder to them of their own shortcomings. Louis was a reminder that even though they called themselves Christians, they were behaving unchristianly toward Francesca and her son. At 17, after graduating from high school, Louis went to WashTec Sandy and enrolled in heating and air conditioning. He realized he wasn't fit for college, and Uncle Rob agreed that WashTec was the smartest decision. Upon graduation, Louis was immediately hired at Robertson's HNAC. Louis worked hard for his employer and did his best to pay Uncle Rob for room and board. After 3 years, Louis talked to Uncle Rob and set sail on his own. The money he gave Uncle Rob for room and board, Uncle Rob gave back to Louis so he could have startup capital to start his own company. Many of Robertson's customers realized they could trust Louis. Most of Robertson's repairmen tried to sell customers new appliances. Louis took the time to research possible repair options. If he said a device was too old or its repair was unprofitable, the customer knew it wasn't a scam. So when Louis went out on his own, he already had a solid customer base, and word of mouth worked like gold, even as Jessica was bad mouthing her separated husband to her co-workers. Lori Knowles, a gold standard real estate agent, sent a message to Louis's HNAC. Caroline Stoles, an interior decorator, also sent Louis a text message requesting service. I think I asked you to turn that off, Monica Berhalter said sharply, when a zing sounded again from Louis's pocket. No, ma'am, you did not, Louis replied. If you had, I would have turned it off. Please turn it off, Monica asked. At the end of the session, Louis stood up and stretched. He then asked Monica if she wanted to bet that Jessica hadn't paid for the session. Burger at Frank's, Monica smirked. Probably not, Louis said, turning on his cell phone again. Looks like I'll be too busy to make a living. $2 a minute, Louis asked, paying $90. Well, yeah, it's not like we can all charge as much as an air conditioner. Monica smiled and turned to the next customer waiting in the cramped front room. Hi, I'll be there in a minute, okay? Just need to clean up the blood from the last session. She's kidding. She's kidding, Louis hastened to assure Morgan Dinger and the unknown woman. Morgan Dinger was the manager of Burns & Burns Grocer's grocery store. He was a client of Louis's. Louis had even come to Morgan's house once on a very cold winter day to repair Morgan's heat pump. I know, Rooney, Morgan grinned. We've met Miss Berhalter before. She thinks she's funny or something. I think she's funny, the nameless woman smiled. Because she always agrees with you. Morgan smiled. No regrets? Oh, okay. Who here feels sorry for Morgan? Anyone? Anyone? The woman said, looking around for raised hands. Louis was busy until 7 o'clock at night. At that time, Frank's was still crowded. A mother and father with 2 twin girls stood in line in front of Louis and 2 7-year-old girls entertained him until they reached the counter. Do you have kids? The African-American mother asked, smiling at Louis. I had an 8-year-old adopted daughter, Louis admitted. You did? Oh, buddy, I'm sorry to hear that. The red-haired father sympathized. It happens, Louis smiled. But thanks for letting me borrow yours for a while. If you want them, give us a call, father said, and placed their order. After learning that Jessica hadn't paid Monica Berhalter's bill, Donovan Recor relayed a message to her that she needed to pay the bill or he would stop representing her. Louis listened to Jessica's long, rambling, tearful voice message on his cell phone. Hey, Jessica, I have an idea, Louis replied to the voicemail. It sounds like being a real estate agent isn't your thing. Maybe you should look for another job. Repeat after me. Do you want fries? But please don't call me again. Chawanaga. Louis continued in response to Jessica's cries. If you need to give me a message, go through my lawyer, okay? Our next meeting with Monica is Thursday at 10. Pay up front, or we don't go. Got it? So, Jessica, last week I asked you to think about why you wanted to stay married to Louis. Monica began the next session. Last session you spent 10 minutes telling me and Louis about his faults and mistakes. So why do you want to stay married? Why are we here? Instead of answering Monica's question, Jessica began to make more claims. Eventually, the complaints turned into demands. Monica sat with an impassive face, despite Louis's amused grimace. Thank you, Miss Hargreaves. Monica finally stopped Jessica's tirade. Louis, you've started the divorce proceedings, haven't you? Why? What made you make that decision? Louis began to talk about finding a house. Jessica already had a certain house in mind, but she didn't want to or couldn't elaborate on it. They looked at several suitable options. Jessica began to voice her dissatisfaction with the other houses. Monica intervened. Louis then brought up the carpet. Jessica began to object again. Monica pulled out a notebook and an ink pen, handed them to Jessica, and Louis went on to talk about the 7 different colors of carpet, insisting Jessica's preference, as well as the new drawers and cabinet slides. Monica stopped her and offered to write her suggestions. I think the last straw was a visit to the furniture store. Louis sighed. You know, everything in my trailer was bought at consignment stores and gradually. Good. Solid furniture. Damn, I'm glad Woken doesn't sell furniture. Jessica would totally take me there. Louis turned to look at an angry Jessica. She opened her mouth to contradict his incorrect assertions. Well, Jessica, if my opinion doesn't matter and Michelle's opinion doesn't matter, you can do whatever you want, Louis said. I meant to say that. She decided to justify herself. Louis said, but I'm certainly not going to pay for it. So what's up, Jessica? Buy whatever your ass can afford. You hear me? Monica said. Well, her time is up this week. Jessica, Miss Hargreaves, is it serious? Is there going to be another session? I seriously doubt it. You haven't done anything, Jessica growled, hopefully. By the way, Frank, that was worth my extra push-ups and squats, Monica said to Louis as he followed Jessica to the door. To completely wrap up the evening, we need to stop by Zytoko's for donuts and coffee. Louis smiled. Shut up. Just shut up. I don't need help breaking my diet. Monica laughed. That desk was began. Jessica, as Louis stepped out into the hallway in front of Monica Berhalter's office. Forget about it, Jessica. Nobody cares, Louis said as he turned on his cell phone and checked for missed calls. No, look, the table was insisted. Jessica. Louis decided to take the stairs rather than wait for the elevator. He didn't know how long the elevator would take, and he realized that Jessica would certainly want to continue the argument about the desk, about the house, about anything, since Monica Berhalter's office was on the 10th floor of the Ubelhauser building. Louis highly doubted that Jessica Hargreaves would follow him up the stairs. No matter how important she thought her opinion was, she wasn't going to take more steps than necessary. That was rude, Jessica said, when Louis finally made it down the stairs to the second level of the parking lot. Wait, are you apologizing? You admit you were rude? Asked Louis as he opened the door of his pickup truck. Huh? Asked Jessica, giving Louis the moment of silence he needed to leave. Lewis smirked, breaking away from Jessica's scowl. He could see Jessica's mouth moving even as he approached the curve of the descent into the parking lot. His first meeting after the session even commented on his good mood. "Yes, ma'am," Lewis said. "You know we can all find reasons to be happy." At 6.30, Lewis finished the last of the repairs and flipped a coin in his mind. He could go home to his trailer. He had 12 bottles of Grassley's in the refrigerator. Or he could stop by the captain's table and watch the pretty girls frolicking around while he drank draft gracefully. Lewis saw the kids playing in the small neighborhood park and thought of Michelle. Sighing, he decided to just walk home. 23 years and already things are going to go downhill, Lewis thought to himself. He picked up the phone. "Lewis here," he answered. "My air conditioner just broke." The man said, "Geez, I know it's after hours, but can we please?" Lewis wrote down the address and drove 3 blocks from his last customer's house. He fixed the machine and asked for another $50 for the rework, considering the time was past 6 o'clock. When Lewis went outside, he noticed several signs. In the front yard of the house across the street, there was also an eviction notice taped to the front door. "If I had the money, I'd buy it right away at the courthouse auction," the man said. "You just go to the courthouse auction and buy them?" asked Lewis. "Yes, the first Tuesday of the month. These houses go for next to nothing. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms," the man assured Lewis. In his trailer with a cold Gracefully in his hand, Lewis studied the information on foreclosed homes. The house he'd seen that night wasn't listed as a property in and around Clarkston County. Perhaps the bank hadn't filed with the county yet. Jessica's lawyer made no further obstacles. Lewis figured Jessica would not pay Donovan record. Soon, he and Jessica were standing in a busy courtroom waiting for Rooney v. Hargreaves to be announced. After the divorce, Lewis received 70% of the value of the house. At the sale on Cottonwood Drive, the judge remained impassive as Jessica recounted that she and her daughters had nowhere to go. "Then, Miss Hargreaves, you can buy a share of Mr. Rooney's house," the judge suggested. Lewis was sure all the repairs and improvements had helped, and the house quickly found a buyer, leaving him $43,000. During the signing of the papers, Jessica cried, and Lewis almost felt sympathy, not enough to let her have her 70% of the sale. But at least he understood her distress somehow. Jessica had her own vision of true happiness and briefly felt she had achieved that goal. She had a beautiful young daughter who looked like herself, a successful career as a real estate agent, a loving husband, and a home that reflected her intelligence, grace, and excellent sense of style and color. The judge looked closely at the notarized lines, and the caring husband was dismissed. Richie LeBlanc, Michelle's father, sued Jessica, seeking primary custody of his daughter after learning that the girl had failed 3rd grade and now lived in a small apartment and a not-so-great neighborhood in Clarkston County. Despite some success as a real estate agent, Jessica's success was limited, and now her storefront no longer belonged to her. "I hope you're happy now," Jessica called out to Lewis as the last page of paper was completed. "Jessica, if you had tried just once to make someone else happy, maybe you would have found happiness yourself," Lewis replied, thanks to young attorney Samantha Cox, who handed him a check for 70% of the sale, deducting closing costs. "Instead, you were too busy demanding that others make you happy." Lewis continued, opening the door to the conference room. "So what's the bottom line?" "Nobody's happy except me," Lewis said, checking the amount of the check. "Oh yes, Lewis is happy. Lewis is very happy." Lewis turned on his phone and noticed a call from an unknown number. After listening to the voicemail, he wrote down the number and dialed it. "Hi, this is Lewis at Sammy's H&AC, he said when he heard a gruff voice answer. "Sugar plums." In Grackley, Arkansas, there was a gentleman's club next to his trailer. Lewis picked up his tools and headed for the front door. The bouncer greeted him with a genuine smile. "If you make that bastard work, I'll buy you a lap dance. You hear?" the man promised. "Oh yeah, I can see he's demanding your attention," Lewis replied as the bouncer opened the door, and a wave of hot air washed over them. Not a big deal, Louis smiled as he walked back into the house. After checking the outside unit, I think you bought this unit with the building, right? Hell, I don't remember, the manager replied, wiping his forehead with a wet handkerchief. Maybe the bouncer replied, I think there used to be a dental office here, and they had to close because nobody in Gratchley remembers a toothbrush. Joked the manager. Louis laughed when he heard an indignant cry of, Hey, from several customers and dancers. He showed the manager and the bouncer the places where the contacts were worn from years of use and informed them that he had the parts in his trailer and would be back in 20 minutes. 2 hours later, after leaving the lawyer's office, Louis was enjoying a cold Gratchley's and watching a pretty brunette sway and dance to a hip-hop song. He smiled when Candy, known as So Cute, sent him an air kiss before jumping off the stage. Put your hands together for Desiree and Sugar Plums, the DJ announced as the next hip-hop song began. I like those chubby bunnies too, grinned Marv, Louis's new buddy heading for the restroom. How's Bill, dude, the manager said, passing a cold beer and spicy nachos across the bar. And if anyone asks who I recommended for the AC role, rest assured I'll name you. Couldn't be better, Louis agreed, inwardly groaning as Desiree turned around, showing off her lush form. Hell, I wouldn't mind entertaining her. Yeah, but you better not draw too much attention to yourself, agreed Marv. You can try, but be prepared that it might not end well for you. But I'll still smile, Louis added. Got it, got it. Marv clapped Louis on the shoulder and returned to his seat by the door. With a little money in his pocket and a lot of free time, Louis started buying houses every first Tuesday of the month. Some months, he stood among the buyers on the steps of the Clarkston County Courthouse, others on the steps of the Blotchon County Courthouse, purchasing foreclosed homes in Gratchley and the surrounding area. Once purchased, he would renovate them on evenings and weekends, painting, laying carpet, installing new furnaces, then selling them quickly. After successful transactions, Louis would stop by Sugar Plums to celebrate, with a couple cold beers and snack on spicy nachos. Doing little pleasures for himself, Louis finally worked up the courage to ask out Desiree Sandy. Well, Shin, the stocky blonde admitted she didn't like to dance and hated being Desiree. But she had accumulated credit card debt and money was a good motivator. One cold winter morning, when it was raining hard, Louis answered the phone. It was his former therapist, Monica Berhalter. Hi, this is Monica Berhalter, she said. My heater's not working. I can see my breath. I know it's Saturday and you don't work weekends, but please. Remembering her first session, Louis smiled, anticipating meeting this attractive woman. Louis was a little puzzled when Monica opened the door of her Kent Avenue home. Wearing sweatpants and a sweatshirt, the house was cool, but not cool enough to see her breathing. He followed her to her furnace, noticing its comfortable interior as he walked through the house. There he found that the pilot light of the furnace was not lit and the gas was turned off. Who else lives here? Cautiously asked Louis, lighting the pilot lamp and turning on the gas. Oh, just me, replied Monica. The coffee's ready and the croissants are almost done. I have apple jelly, strawberry rhubarb jam, and blackberry jam. What do you prefer on your croissant? Strawberry and rhubarb, please. Louis agreed. My bedroom is very warm and cozy thanks to the fireplace. Monica offered. I'm already suffocating in this outfit. Well then, you should definitely take it off no matter what happens. Louis joked, following her up the stairs to the second floor. The bedroom was really warm. It was decorated with a large, comfortable bed. There was a bare rug in front of the fireplace, 2 soft leather armchairs, and a small round table. Louis chose one of the chairs and enjoyed the ambience. He appreciated the way Monica had made her bed. Jessica rarely did this and often laughed at Louis when he tried to keep such order. A few minutes later, Monica returned with a wooden tray containing 2 cups of coffee, a pitcher of cream, a plate of sugar cubes, and 4 hot croissants. With a glance, Louis realized that Monica, at her height of 5 feet 3 inches, weighed between 175 and 185 pounds. She looked very attractive in that outfit. I've had this bear rug for 2 years, and I've never made love on it," Monica said as they finished eating the delicious pastries. "That needs to be fixed." "Right now," Louis joked, pulling her into his arms. A few hours later, the rain had stopped and his new project could be painted by Sunday. But Louis didn't want to leave Monica's bedroom. "I have a session tomorrow at 9, she murmured sleepily, settling down next to his naked body. "I need a good night's sleep. Good night. I love you." A moment later, Monica's beautiful brown eyes suddenly opened and her mouth fell open in surprise. Louis kissed her tenderly, hugging her naked body tightly. "And I love you," he whispered and kissed her again. 4 months later, standing on the steps of the Clarkston County Courthouse, Louis realized that he had already managed to purchase 3 homes and his work was now complete. As he approached the payment table, he heard the auctioneer announce the house on Cottonwood Street, number 1711. Louis paid his winning bids, after which he heard several people begin to bid. On his former home, one young man confidently indicated that he intended to be the new owner. Louis suspected that the other 2 bidders were artificially inflating the price. The other 2 bidders stopped their bidding when it looked like the young man was going to stop. Louis wrote down their names, deciding that the next time they appeared at the auction, he would increase the bid. Louis wondered if Jessica would be interested in learning that the house on Cottonwood Street, number 1711, had sold for $77,009. Louis also wondered if anyone knew how to contact Pamela Hargreaves. He hadn't seen or heard from her since that day in Sylvia Cox's office when he signed the papers for the sale of the aforementioned house. He had heard that Richie had been awarded primary custody of their daughter. Louis hoped the girl was doing well and thriving under her father's careful guidance. Unfortunately, Louis assumed that Michelle wouldn't see her mother again. If Jessica didn't have complete control over the child, then she wanted nothing to do with Louis. Suddenly, Louis saw a text message from Monica Rooney on his screen. 10 minutes from now. "Is Mama Bear hungry?" replied Louis. "Mama Bear is very hungry," the therapist replied. Noticing his wife standing in the long line, Louis walked over and kissed her. His hand traveled gently down to her little bump where the baby would soon be. Leaning against him, Monica whispered that her appointment was canceled for an hour, and Papa Bear could figure out something to occupy that time.